stifling performance and innovation in corporate America.
Some, by the way, of those TARP people apparently wanting to pull out now.
Goldman Sachs wants to pay back the $10 billion it took in TARP money.
Just before this rule goes into effect. Yes. Well, joining us now, Republican Congressman Steve Scalise. He is a Republican from Louisiana. Great to see you, Congressman. Thanks for coming in. Didn't we know something like this? I mean, you know, to a certain, I don't want government interfering in private sector salaries. On the other hand, if you take government money, you should know that something like this was going to happen, right?
Well, David, you're exactly right. And this really underscores the danger of going down this road of all of these financial bailouts. It shows why they're so wrong. Now the government is going to be in boardrooms, but frankly, I would hope that businesses would not take this money and return that money to the taxpayer, and hopefully this will encourage the end of all of this bailout mania up here.
Well, Congressman, you know, we were joking about Goldman Sachs saying that they do seek to repay the TARP funds. I believe they had about $10 billion. Nothing wrong with that. We want them to pay back the money now that they've gotten back sort of on stable footing, terra firma. But looking at the potential for putting these salary caps on top executive pay, on the one hand, certainly if they are now owned by the newest shareholders, the U.S. taxpayer, should they not be held to a different sort of level of responsibility? Yet we understand the concerns about it stifling innovation. It's a bit nerve-wracking.
Well, and I agree that if they're going to come to the taxpayer with their handout, then there should be limits that are put in place, because I think it offends everybody to see a company that's failing. Their executives are getting $20 million a year in golden parachutes. But at the same time, I oppose the bailouts because I think it sets up the wrong sort of approach where people do look to the government to solve basically their financial problems that they brought upon themselves.
By the way, you also opposed the stimulus plan. I'm just curious, are you taking any heat from that back home? Because Louisiana is a relatively poor state. You'd probably be getting back a lot more from the feds than you'd be giving out in terms of federal taxes.
Well, what people are finding out, the more they see this bill, the more they realize it's not a stimulus bill at all. It's just a blatant spending bill, and it's a bunch of grab bag items that a lot of liberals came up with here in Washington to spend money on government. In fact, if you look at the bill, there's about $150 billion in that bill to bail out states, and you don't see any language in there to limit the states to make sure they have to go and cut the waste in their budgets. So I think people are saying, look, we're tightening our belts during these tough economic times. States should be tightening their belts, but the federal government seems to be the only entity going on this wild spending spree, and people are seeing a lot of this is just new government spending. It's not anything that's going to help stimulate the economy, and that's why we presented an alternative plan to President Obama, and hopefully now that the public's seeing this and they're finding a distaste, in fact a bipartisan vote against the bill in the House, Republicans and Democrats, hopefully now they'll go back to the table and say, let's actually do something that's going to work. It's important we get this right.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that, but listen, a lot of Republicans voted for President Bush's stimulus plan, what was it, last year, that put $500 to $600 checks in people's pockets, and 30% of it went back into the system. The rest was used to pay down debt. It didn't work. Economist Martin Feldstein saying that really was a total disaster. So suddenly now Republicans feel, wait a minute, we've got to touch the brakes?
Well, I didn't support that. I wasn't in Congress at the time, but I think a lot of people see that it didn't work. We need to learn from history. And let's just look at the Congressional Budget Office report on the president's spending bill that's been out for about a week and a half now. It shows that over 50% of this money won't even be spent in the next 2 years. So it's not a stimulus bill. It's just a wild spending bill. And even the spending that's in this bill isn't going to help create jobs. We really need to go back and cut taxes to help small businesses, middle-class families, to go create the jobs that'll get our economy back on track, not add another $900 billion of national debt for our children and grandchildren to inherit.
Let's go full circle back to the compensation issue. Are you concerned that what is now limited to a cap on salary, just limited to those who've taken TARP funds, might expand to other sectors of the private sector as well?
Well, in general, the government should be leaving people alone and letting them go out and create jobs. And the businesses that are having trouble need to go and fix their business problems instead of being able to turn to the government and know that there's going to be a safety net and a bailout, even if they don't change the way they're doing business. So first of all, I think people have seen that that first $350 billion of the TARP money really didn't go to things that are helping the credit markets. So I think we should stop the second $350 billion. But obviously they want to go and spend the money and then limit the compensation, which if somebody wants to take that money, there should be limits in place. But I don't think government should be in this business of bailouts in the first place.
Well, sensible talk. Let's hope somebody's listening, and we're glad folks like you are in Congress. Thanks, Representative.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Great to be with you.
Anytime, Representative Scalise. Let's talk to a Fortune 500 CEO right now.